Welcome to part 3 of Betting People with Terry Norman. Now, we're going to discuss the racing media, and we have done in bits and pieces in the first 2 parts. But you worked at the races for a while. Tell us what that was like.
Well, again, I got that on the back of the success with Kevin and Gary Stevens, because I was the first jockey's agent to appear. Now, at the time, it actually wasn't called At the Races. It was the Racing Channel. And 2 of the main presenters at the time were Alex Hammond and, would you believe, Richard Pittman. And do you know when you get people that influence you during your career, even when you get to a certain age? Richard Pittman was just perfect. He was kind in the sense when you were a greenhorn, and I mean, as you can gather from doing this, I do talk a lot. Having times when to stop talking, when to do things. He used to give you advice. He invited me up to York one day when he did a talk, just to sort of sit there and get a gist of what was going on. And he was just so friendly. I mean, he would literally say, look, Terry, don't say that, and you're going to get yourself in trouble. Be careful off air when you think you're off air, that you don't say something that you shouldn't. I mean, I do that when I'm on air, let alone when I'm off air. So he would give you little tips. And weirdly enough, the Racing Channel evolved into At the Races, but they covered South African racing first. So my first forte into broadcasting was actually not English racing. It was South African and American, because they used to have different presenters. That was the days when Luke Harvey used to have hair, Matt Chapman didn't have an ego, and everyone used to get drinks brought to them halfway during the breaks. It was fantastic.
Wonderful. And did you ever work, by the way, because I'm guessing it was around the same time, did you ever work with the one, the only Derek Thompson whilst you were at the races?
You've been prompted for this, haven't you?
Tell us.
Derek, if you're watching this, I do apologise for relaying the story yet again and for ruining. I don't know what ruined. Anyway, I'll tell you what it is. I used to do some Sunday stuff as well when they used to cover racing from Spain. Now, bearing in mind, this is 1999, 2000, something like probably 2001. So this particular Sunday, I've gone in, and part of the programme is the Mihas Derby. Adrian Nichols has got a ride out there. Now, anyone that knows Derek, it's not off the cuff when he does his television. He rehearses. So I've walked in, and Derek's got his script, and he's walking up and down the office in At the Races. Yes. He's doing this. Morning, Terry. Right, big fella, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we're doing the briefings as you do. So he sits down. He goes, right, Terry. He says, we've got the Mihas Derby today. He said, do you know how many derbies there are worldwide? Now, bear in mind at the time, there weren't that many. I went, no idea, Derek. He said, there's 8. He said, what we'll do, we'll start the programme, and I'll go, you do this, Terry. He said, and then I'll say to you, Terry, do you know how many derbies there are worldwide? And you'll go, no idea. And I'll say 8. So anyway, we start the programme, blah, 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 blah. So in he goes, oh, I'm pleased to have Terry Norman in. He said, oh, by the way, he said, we're covering the Mihas Derby today. He said, Terry, do you know how many derbies there are worldwide? I went, 8, Derek. And he just went bananas. And we went to a break, and he said, you've ruined my link. And I said, well, come on. I said, you've gave me an open goal. Even Alan Shearer wouldn't have taken that one. And I see him about 3 months ago in Newmarket, and he still reminds me to this day how I ruined his link. And he has never let me forget it. And it was just the funniest thing. To be fair, working with him was brilliant. I mean, he is a joy to work with, because he's not false. I mean, what you see is what he is. I mean, he's bubbly, he's funny, he's annoying, but he's great to work with. And ultimately, I think he forgave me, but it took a long time. He never worked with me again At the Races, the Racing Channel. He didn't want to.
Wow, my God! Thank you. That was genuinely brilliant. You also worked on Timeform Radio.
Yeah, I love that. It's funny where you get jobs that you do because you're good at them, jobs that you do because you have to do, or jobs that you do because you love doing. I went to work for Timeform Radio when it's officially called Betfair Radio, and then it changed over to Timeform Radio. I mean, wow. I mean, what an experience. I mean, funny enough, I work with David Stewart a lot. I work with Chris Barnett and Alan Dudman. Alan Dudman, probably in my mind, one of the best broadcasters out there. He doesn't actually do television. He should do, because he looks like one of the blokes out of Bros. But bottom line being is, he's gone into sort of voiceovers now, but he was brilliant. And we had so much fun. I mean, it was professional. You wanted to be professional, but I used to kind of get the weekend gigs as well, because a lot of people didn't like working with. I didn't really care, because I just loved working on the show. So consequently, I would do a lot of Saturday nights. And funny enough, I worked a lot with Dave. Dave would be the producer. You would have one person in. But what was great about it is that we interacted with the public. So you would have a Facebook page. You'd have competitions. You'd get people that would send emails in. Because I always feel the best type of programs, some of my bosses didn't actually think that, but I always think the best type of programs when you have interaction, because there's nothing more joyful, I would imagine, for a listener if they send an email in or they put a post on Facebook and you read it out and you interact with them. And I did that for 5 years, and it probably was the most enjoyable 5 years. It was hard work, because I was still doing my jockey's agent's job with Kieren at the time. So I was combining the two. So you were working like 14, 16 hours a day. And with that, I then went on to do the American stuff, because I love American racing. I mean, even though now, because you're forced to do it, at the time, it kind of took a back seat, but I've always followed it from when I was on the Racing Channel. And the greatest joy I had was 2 horses watching them run. I covered the Breeders' Cup Juvenile when Uncle Mo won, and then he became favourite for the Kentucky Derby following year. He didn't really train on. And then the joy and the heartbreak of following Zenyatta's career for nearly 2 years, from the Breeders' Cup Classic, where she did win, all the way through to the hullabaloo leading up to that final race, which we covered at 12:07 on a Sunday morning, when she went to have an unbeaten record all the way through her career, and then Blaine comes and spoiled the party. That was probably the most disappointing aspect. But we had some great times. We did the ARC. We couldn't actually officially take the live commentaries. So Paul Jacobs, who has got the best nickname in the world, by the way, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's Crackers. Can't beat it. Can't beat it. He was doing the commentaries from See the Stars ARC. Chris Barnett was out there. We had Alan Dudman, myself in the studio. You had Dave producing, and you had Crackers doing the commentaries. That would probably be my best ever day. We was on air from 11 o'clock, and we went all the way through until 7 o'clock. And do you know what? It was like 5 minutes. It was the best thing. And unfortunately, when Betfair and Timeform joined up with Paddy Power, they then disbanded Timeform Radio. It's a shame, because I think if the amalgamation had actually come earlier, I think Timeform Radio would still be on air, and everybody loved it. It provided a service for people that couldn't afford to have the satellite channels, which is what you want to get onto as well. They couldn't provide pictures. You could listen to it, and because they were live commentaries as well from the tracks, it was almost as if you had everything you needed apart from the pictures. And it was just a great program to work on. It was brilliant. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I miss it really badly, even now. 4 years it's been gone now.
Well, that's somebody actually who was growing up younger and racing and didn't even have sort of those connections. I grew up well away from any racing centres. Exeter was my closest course, and even then there wasn't a training community around there. Timeform Radio was invaluable for me. I was really, really gutted when it went, and I know many people who might not necessarily even be that much older than myself do miss it greatly.
And the other thing as well, Will, which was good about it, is that you could get onto it via the internet. So it wasn't a radio station, it was an internet station. So if you were driving and you could get it on your car radio via Bluetooth, you could actually listen. If you were driving someone, you could listen to the whole afternoon situation, but having live proper commentaries, not commentaries done in-house, in betting shop commentaries, literally proper commentaries. It was brilliant. And like I said, of your ilk and people even younger who remember it, they just missed it so badly. And then the petitions there, and I mean, you've only got to speak to David to know what a lot of people felt when it went. And even now, 5 years later, I still miss it a lot. I loved it, absolutely loved it.
I concur completely with that. So let's talk about current racing media, because obviously we're in really extraordinary times. Indeed, there are some subscriptions that have been suspended, or basically, to give it a different name, some subscriptions that have been sort of furloughed in a sense. The Racing Post, for the first time in its history, I think it turned 34 just yesterday, doesn't have a print paper about. When racing returns in whatever form, in the years to come, what does the future hold for the Post and the other big sort of racing media companies?
We'll start with the Racing Post. If someone has said to me or asked me the question 6 months ago, do you think there's a possibility that the Racing Post print edition would stop? You would have laughed at them. But I tell you what now is that the way things are going, and the other thing as well, Will, which is not just in terms of people buying the paper, but I would imagine the cost of producing it. If you take the cost now, I'll be honest, I have not bought a print edition of the Racing Post for 3 years because of the job that I do. I work on computers. But if you break down buying the Racing Post every single day, print edition, over a period of a year, it's about 1,200 quid. If you look at what it costs to use it on the computer, you get the paper, exactly the same, but obviously on your tablet or your laptop. You get access to the website. You get access to all the replays. You also get the Weekender, and you get the Racing and Football Outlook included, 340 quid a year. It is literally less than a third of what it would cost to get exactly the same. Now, I think in terms to come, the cost of producing a paper on a daily basis, and the beauty of as well with having a website, you can update it as the news comes in. Once the paper's printed, the next day, most people, I would say now, have a tablet or an iPad. You'd be surprised if they haven't. Yeah. So most people can get the paper at 9 o'clock the previous day. The next morning, I know the old diehards who probably haven't, but they are without literally getting to the stage when they probably don't need to have the paper anymore. The new generation that are kicking in, I don't think most of them, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm down with the kids because I'm not, but I mean, the people that I know that are in their early 20s, they all read it on the tablets. They all read it on their laptops. They don't buy the paper. And the future of all papers makes you worry, because how many times now do you see on Twitter newspaper editors saying, keep paper, please buy our paper? Everyone is pleading for people to go out and buy it, because I can't remember the last time I had the Telegraph on an app, and it saves me about £600 a year by having it on the app compared to buying it in the shop. Sunday People is the other paper I have as well. Probably going to get slaughtered for that, but who cares? I get that on an app, £2.99 a month. If you buy it individually, it's £8. So the cost of putting it online is so much cheaper. I think eventually, and you can update the news instantly, can't you? When the paper comes out and the Racing Post now, when they have a breaking story, they just whack it straight on the website. In the paper, you'd have to wait until the next day. By then, everyone would have seen it already. I would think the future, and we're probably talking not even 5-10 years, I don't think there'll be many print editions of many papers. I think they'll all be online.
I completely agree with you. The Independent already went down that road. And
that's one, exactly.
Yeah, and actually, I think they are nearly breaking even. And
how much money were they losing? They were losing fortunes.
Yeah. It depends a lot also on who exactly owns what paper, and which media group, etc., does so. And of course, now we are in a situation essentially where we're being stress tested on living without print. But now I can definitely see an era where all titles, regardless of what they're covering, go completely digital. Will racing, do you think, always have a spot on terrestrial television? Because that's been a hotly contested topic in recent years. We've seen racing go from a BBC, which many people believe didn't really care about the product, to Channel 4, when there was, of course, the ratings wars, to ITV, when, to be fair, it has had a ratings resurgence in recent years.
Well, ITV have been a major success, haven't they? I mean, a lot of people were wondering when it went to ITV, do you remember when the conversation came out about, oh, it wasn't always going to be on the main ITV channel? No one will watch it on ITV3 because Superman was on there. But the figures have disproved that. Yes, there is always a gap because in this day and age, and obviously for the situation that we're going through at the present time, a lot of people probably ain't going to be able to afford to keep buying the specialist channels. I mean, obviously, if you're involved in the industry, it's part of your job. I mean, I couldn't cope with not having or Sky Sports as it is now, and Racing TV. I couldn't cope without it, but a lot of people probably can. And even when you listen to Oisin, is that a lot of people now that he's trying to bring into the sport, watch it on ITV Racing rather than watch it on the satellite channel. So I think the next contract's going to be the key, isn't it? When they renegotiate, if ITV get it again, and then obviously the viewing figures hold up, then I think we'll be fine. I mean, the biggest misnomer now, and I know a few people that work for the BBC, so I'm probably going to get slaughtered for this. How on earth can the BBC justify funding the BBC Sports Personality of the Year when they don't cover no sports hardly? They just literally just talking. So BBC have kind of recalled. I mean, I know they've got Wimbledon and they've got other events, but in terms of racing now, they've got no interest in racing whatsoever. And the fact that Cornelius is gone, he's just the most amazing broadcaster, and they've deemed to get rid of him, it just tells you what their idea of racing is. I mean, you don't get rid of an icon and you don't get someone who's synonymous with BBC racing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really agree with you on that, on the BBC. It feels like, as somebody, again, who grew up with a lot of BBC Grand Nationals, BBC Royal Ascot, derbies, etc., it feels like once they lost the racing, that it became very expendable to them. But we do live in a changing media landscape. There's an awful lot of pressure now on those finances, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens down the road, because ITV certainly have done a good job of promoting racing to people who aren't necessarily like the people who watch this interview, or you and me.
And the good thing is, is that because they can promote it during programs like Coronation Street, and other things, that is such a major plus for them. I mean, touch wood. I mean, I worked with Ed Chamberlain many years ago on a magazine when he was the editor. He had just left Ladbrokes, and he had moved on to being editor of that. And he loves racing. He probably loves racing more than football, and he loves football as well. And he's done a really good job. They've done a good job, ITV, because a lot of people were sceptical that it would work. And it's like most things in life. People can talk a good game, whether it's football, racing, anything you like. But ultimately, the answer is in the figures, and you cannot argue with the figures. So I think it'll be fine on ITV, and I think ITV will keep it if they're not daft enough to give it up. Because if it does get given up by the ITV, then it will disappear, because BBC won't take it back up for sure.
I think many people would agree with your sentiments, and that's a really good way to end part 3 of Betting People with Terry Norman. Terry, thank you.